We met at a church that my parents were speaking at.
My parents had gone out with his parents the night before, and in the course of dinner, somehow medical missions got brought up in the conversation, and my mom said, "Oh, I have a daughter who's a nurse who's been wanting to go on a medical mission." And she said, John raised his hand and said, "I've got a medical mission that she could go on."
She was just trying to hook her daughter up for a mission trip, not a husband.
She got both. So did I.
Hey everyone, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It is Tuesday, September 27th. I hope you're having a wonderful day. So it's, I don't know, it's like the end of September. It's almost fall. It is fall. The equinox was last week, wasn't it? Okay, so it's fall and it's time for the midterm elections. You know I don't do politics here, but I wanted to just bring something up that I found out recently as I was looking through some political candidate lists of the local fair in Arkansas, and I just thought this was funny. I don't know if it's funny haha or funny ironic or funny like karma, I don't know, but let's talk about how Josh Duggar's indictment, arrest, and jailing, imprisonment resulted in his brother John David losing his or being fired from his constable job in Arkansas that he had held since 2014, and how that firing happened in June, but the candidate that he lost to, you're never gonna believe this. So and on top of that, he has a baby on the way. And before we get into today's topic, can you do me a huge favor and give this video a thumbs up? Also, subscribe to my channel if you have not yet subscribed. Make sure that you turn your notifications on, set them to all so you never miss a video, and make sure to leave me some comments and even share this video with some friends. So last summer was busy. I mean, actually, I would say since 2019, since Josh Duggar's the raid that happened, or the search warrant that was executed at his car lot, ever since that moment, this channel has been going so fast to the extent that I feel like there have been times where I can't even catch my breath. And then in the middle of all of that, then you have like the sister wives stuff, and you have all these other sort of interweaving stories, and I just always try to bring it back to what you guys like to talk about, and I know that you love the Duggars. And I was thinking about sort of the ripple effects of how Josh Duggar's arrest and imprisonment has been like this domino effect for everyone around him, for good and for bad. I mean, I guess in many ways it blew open, let's just say, the wider problem of the Institute and Basic Life Principles. It's brought us to having a conversation about the doctrine of what they grew up in and what they espoused, and how they use the show on TLC to promote and recruit people into their programs and their homeschool and all of their, mission stuff and all of it. They were doing their missions work on TV, right, for the IBLP. And it was very obvious and yet under the radar. And so that resulted in not only the Duggars being canceled, but also the Bates. Now, the Bates cancellation has a lot more to do with a video that went on Instagram, and there was some comments made that were really racially insensitive, and I believe that was a huge part of why their show was canceled. But some of you have been asking me to bring on some of the more Bates content, and I might. I go back and forth on like, do I want to talk about the Bates? Do I not want to talk about the Bates? And I just can't decide. So, but it's resulted in, obviously, the Bates now have lost their platform. The Duggars have lost their platform on TV. They still have platforms on social media, and many of them are still up and talking. We're just not seeing as many of them. So one brother that has been, he's been like this wild card. So some people really liked John David. Other people thought that he was, I don't know, there was just something about him they didn't like. I rewatched some of the episodes where he was talking about Abby, and I thought came off a little bit controlling and a little bit weird, but that was just me. And then there's this whole part about how he has this nonprofit, and then there was this issue in the Bahamas, and they brought their guns with them, and you can't do that. And they were like allegedly stealing oil, jet fuel, and then reselling it. It was a mess. So in the middle of all of that, he's been doing all of these things. His wife Abby is, she's pregnant with her second child. She's due any day now if she hasn't had the baby already. And if you're wondering, has she had the baby? I don't know. I don't really pay attention too much. And to be honest, I don't usually reach out to sources about pregnancies because that's just what the Duggars do. They have babies. If there's something like scandalous going on, or I have a question about theology or something with drama, I might do that. But like babies, I don't really reach out to. So I haven't asked anyone if she's had her baby. Regardless. John David has been a constable in Arkansas since 2014. So 2014 to 2022 is 8 years. Okay, so he's been a constable in Washington County, in the 1st District of Washington County since 2014. You might remember back on 19 Kids and Counting, and maybe it was even on Counting On, Jim Bob went out in a car with John David while he was out, and he was pretending that he was a police officer, but he's not really a police officer. So constables are actually this thing in Arkansas, and according to a website through the University of Arkansas, it says that constables are an elected official. They're one of the positions established by the Arkansas Constitution. Their role goes back to a time when Arkansas was less populated, more rural, and difficult to travel. They helped keep the peace by patrolling townships and areas smaller than a city. Not to be confused with established towns. Townships are legal boundaries used to establish voting precincts. They still have townships, but not many people in Arkansas are familiar with the concept as cities have grown. So there are fewer constables in Arkansas these days, but basically they are U.S. citizens. They are 18 years of age or older. They are registered to vote in their county, and then basically what it is it's a 2-year term. They have the same law enforcement authority as a sheriff in their township. They have arrest power and can write citations and respond to accidents. In 2007, they placed training requirements on constables if they wanted to carry a gun on duty and have access to Arkansas crime information centers. So the state law requires them to wear uniforms while on duty and label any patrol vehicles with the constable on it. They no longer have the authority to appoint deputies. They're required to keep records of any citations and administrative records similar to requirements placed on sheriffs. So basically, they're kind of like in unincorporated areas, small township areas that he would be patrolling that doesn't have a police force. What is kind of scary though is that they can arrest people, they can do citations, and they can get access to databases and with additional training, and they can carry a gun. So if John David had gone through the specific training requirements by the state, he could have had access to the Arkansas Crime Information Center, which is like a database that allows them to look things up online and then through the database. And he also would have been able to carry a gun. So if with John David losing his position, and if say he did all of this information, so say he did all of those trainings, the Duggars are going to lose access to the Arkansas Crime Information Center. They're also going to lose access to someone in law enforcement that might have been able to get them out of things or sort of mind their business or nudge, nudge, wink, wink kind of thing. Not to say that John David would do that, but, you know, the Duggars are well known in their area, and they definitely have a lot of friends in law enforcement that have at times and not at times and at not times made their lives even better, or in Josh's case, they finally said enough and they did what they needed to do. But Judge Brooks, one of his big concerns during the trial was the potential of, like, this was a rumor I'd heard from someone that was at the trial, was that one of the concerns at trial was the potential of like jury tampering or witness tampering because of, you know, the pull that Jim Bob has with people. So there was like a very wide eye angle and like keen eye on like Jim Bob, and every single day the jury was instructed not to speak to anyone, not to talk to anyone, to just go straight home. And if anyone were to talk to them, they were supposed to like report it back to Judge Brooks because of that concern. And so knowing that that pull now is gone from Jim Bob, he's losing access to a crime database that he might have had access to through John David. He's losing access to, you know, that pull that he has within the county sheriff, because John David, even though he's not a county sheriff, he's with the county. And so he's like a constable's kind of like a sheriff in their tiny little area. So they're losing that. And then add on top of that, so let's just pile this on. One of their friends recently lost their job, Bob Ballinger, who was their state representative, that is a good friend of Jim Bob Duggar, and he had been instrumental in passing a lot of legislation or working on bills that really benefited the IBLP's belief system and the very fundamentalist beliefs around, you know, like he was one person that instituted like creationism being taught in school, and not in lieu of like evolution. And he also passed a bunch of real estate laws. Incidentally, he was also really big into making the medical marijuana thing a thing, which is, I mean, I guess anything is for money these days with certain factions of the fundamentalists. But so Bob Ballinger lost his primary, and so he's out now. And so Jim Bob's lost his friend in the House that was helping to pass legislation that would benefit his businesses, his car dealerships, his real estate empires, his building companies, all of that. So that's gone too. So John David's lost his job. He was fired. Bob Ballinger was fired. And now Jim Bob, going into 2023, is going to have a very different life. I mean, Jim Bob has been keeping a very low profile. He did do a speaking engagement over the summer, like he did a Courageous Man's event at Terry Forsyth's camp. But he's been pretty low key, not trying to like make too many waves. And if I was going to be completely honest, I'm shocked that the Duggars have gone so low key, because I would have thought they would have done more. I thought they would have done, like, they would have spoken out more. But in fairness, Josh's appeals are still in process. And a lot of you guys keep asking what's going on with Josh's case. His appeals are due, the brief is due on the 2nd, I believe, of October. So that's coming up. And don't expect it to get overturned. It's just not going to happen. So John David is out of a job now. When the election happens in November, his opponent that he ran against in the primary is running unopposed. So he lost to the candidate that is going to win by default because no one ran against him. Think about that. So John was beat by a guy named John, and that John is running and no one's running against him. That's gotta be a blow to John Duggar. But in fairness, it's good to see the Duggars out of law enforcement, especially one that's in Jim Bob's pocket like John David. I know some of you love him, but he's still widely connected to his dad. So John David Duggar, fired. Bob Ballinger, fired. And Jim Bob's gonna have to find new friends if he wants to get a wink, wink, nudge, nudge when it comes to law enforcement. What are your thoughts about all of this? Tell me in the comments below. Bye, guys.